Well, Lord Peter Hain has requested to the United States President Joe Biden that he suspend Bain Company from U.S. government contracts over its role played in wide-scale corruption in South Africa and the undermining of its democratic institutions. This follows the UK Cabinet Office instituting a 3-year suspension from UK government contracts on Bain Company in relation to its operation in South Africa. For more on this story, let's cross now to British member of House of Lords and anti-apartheid activist Lord Peter Hain. Lord Peter Hain, good morning to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I think really the first place to start before we even get to Bain & Co. would be your reaction once hearing the news of the passing of Queen Elizabeth II.
Well, like everybody in Britain, we were deeply saddened. I, as a cabinet minister, knew Her Majesty the Queen on first named terms, and was able to spend time with her, briefing her on the Northern Ireland peace process, and as Secretary of State for Wales. So that I had that interaction, but she was deep in the heart of every British citizen, whether you were a monarchist or not, admired her dignity and her professionalism and her sense of duty and service.
Yeah, I think in South Africa there certainly has been an interesting discussion around the role of the Queen and her relationship with South Africa as it has changed and morphed its political position, really. What is your thoughts on how the Queen thought about the apartheid state of South Africa?
Well, the Queen's pretty discreet about these kind of things, but it was very evident that during the 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher, the British Prime Minister, very conservative and close to the apartheid regime, was isolated in the Commonwealth, of which the Queen is head, the Queen was clearly very uncomfortable about that and made her views clear in private. But I don't think anybody would say that she was at the forefront of the anti-apartheid movement or anything like that, though she did, when there was a Labour government, refuse to accept all-white South African teams for the traditional reception in Buckingham Palace in 1965, and said that she would have done the same in 1970 had we not, through our militant process, stopped that all-white South African cricket tour. So clearly, the monarchy and her ancestors were very involved in the colonial period and are therefore part of South Africa's colonial heritage and its apartheid heritage that followed from that. But in its modern carnation, through Her Majesty the Queen did afterwards, of course, form a very close friendship with Nelson Mandela. They clearly formed a close bond, and I think that signaled her where she was, where her heart was, at least in modern times.
Let's turn now to state capture. You've been fighting for strong action to be taken against companies that were involved. You've sent this letter to President Joe Biden, essentially asking for action to be taken against Bain & Co. Why was it important for you to pen that letter? Let's start there.
Well, I was able, after a long campaign beginning early this year, to persuade the British government through the Cabinet Office in July to suspend, rather in August, to suspend Bain from public contracts, from government contracts for 3 years, whilst the recommendation the Zondo Commission made for it to be investigated for unlawful activity, as the Commission described it. That set a precedent. And I'm now asking President Biden to do the same in America. After all, Bain are a global consultancy headquartered globally in Boston. That's where they were founded in the United States. And therefore, the United States is responsible for taking action. And I hope it will do the same as the British government. And it's important because these global corporates worked with President Zuma. In Bain's case, had at least 17 or 18 one-to-one meetings with him, which is both unprofessional, unethical, and extraordinary, in order to plan the dismantling and disabling of the South African Revenue Service, which they accomplished, damaged it considerably. And Bain was also involved in 2 billion rand of contracts right across the state enterprise sector, including Eskom and I think South African Airways. So there are lots of questions that Zondo raised that Bain has never answered, never come clean about. And I think it's important that these global corporates who were complicit in the whole corrupt money laundering, state capture scandal, that they actually feel the pain, because they thought they could get away with it, maybe let go one of their senior partners in the South African operation. But there are global partners still in London who were involved in the South African Revenue Service scandal and in the United States. So at least the British government has taken some action. The American government should follow, and I hope other governments follow as well, so that none of these global corporates do anything like this again.
I mean, there are so many loose ends, right? You're talking about the answers that really haven't been given even here in South Africa, and then there's the request that you're making to President Joe Biden. But do you think that we're actually going to get those answers and that action will be taken even by the US government? Are you confident in that?
Well, I'm asking for the president to take the action that the British government did. And given that Bain was launched from the United States, is headquartered in the United States globally, and has some of the senior global partners still working in the United States who were involved in the South African Revenue Service scandal, the way they disabled it, on Bain's advice, at former President Zuma's prompting and instructions, took massive fees to do that. You know, I just hope that the Americans will do the same as Britain, and then other countries will follow. And by the way, I hope South Africa will do the same. I understand that Bain is booming in South Africa. It seems it's astonishing to me that that's the case.
Yeah, let's leave it there. Lord Peter Hain, thank you so much for speaking to us. That there is a British member of the House of Lords and anti-apartheid activist Lord Peter Hain speaking to us there.